Welcome to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. We interview great guests who inspire you to overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Be sure you visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, just relax as you listen. You can do something else, but be ready to make an important note. And let's get started.
Welcome to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast. The title of this episode is The Secret to Business Entrepreneurship. My guest is extremely special, sincerely. It's because of his qualities. The qualities. This is a very helpful person to me personally, for my company, Auxilium, for what I'm doing. He's a very caring person. He's so cooperative to me in the things that I've asked him to do. He is a wonderful person. I know that sounds like I'm blowing smoke. I'm not. This is a guy that I would hang out with in real life. And that's not the only reason why he's here. He's prolific. His name is John James Santangelo, PhD. He is a nationally acclaimed speaker, author, communication skills expert, and results coach. He's a guiding force in empowering individuals and business to achieve peak performance, an authority in behavioral change, both as an NLP trainer and clinical hypnotherapist. He's the founder of Los Angeles' premier NLP training center. It is a personal and professional training company dedicated to helping people to be able to unleash their natural capability, clarify their goals, overcome their roadblocks, and produce outstanding results. John has worked with companies such as the Learning Annex, Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, Mary Kay Incorporated, Multiple Sclerosis Society, Make-A-Wish Foundation, WellPoint, Xerox, Remax Realtors, the Teamsters Union, and post 9/11 as a head trainer teaching lie detection skills to the U.S. Army counterintelligence teams. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, and others, John. How are you, John?
Hey, buddy. Who is that you just were talking about?
Sounds like a really good guy. Get him on here.
Every time somebody reads that, I'm like, wow, yeah, I guess I've done all that. That's crazy. Like you set your goals, and along the way, you start mapping this thing out, and that's one of the wonderful elements in this journey we call life, right? Is someone said to me once, what's the one thing that you have on your deathbed? And he said, memories. Memories. I'm like, so he said, you better make good ones. You better make ones that others and yourself will look back on and go, wow, my life was worth something. I did it right, rather than regret.
Absolutely. You keep going, you have a plan, you keep going, daily, day after day, put one foot after another. At some point, at any point, you can look back and say, wow, look how far I've come. If you put the legwork in, if you keep going. I mean, you did a lot of keeping on going.
I mean, that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? Is not just in business, but also life, because business is just an aspect of life. The biggest three challenges that most people come to me with are real simple. And you could ask any teenager this, the same thing, they're dealing with it. The first one is relationships, that we find out relationships are tough in high school, right? You get your heart broken a couple times, like, oh my God, I never want to do this again. Of course, that's built in instinctually into our neurology, is procreating, relationships, love, chemicals, all that stuff. The second piece becomes money, right? In your 20s and 30s. How do you live life? You can't live life without money. They say money can't buy you happiness. I don't necessarily agree with that, because it definitely pays your bills and allows you to eat, drive a nice car, have the things that you'd like to live, and rather than just survive. And third, the most important thing, which we usually don't find out until later on in life, is our health. the Maharishi said once, we spend so much of our time trying to make money, and then we spend later on in life spending that money to get our health. It's crazy.
It's so
But
true.
that's what life is about, right? Enjoying the journey, enjoying the process.
Now, when I was creating self-help coaching, I saw that one of the most important things to do was help people manage their states and to have strategies
Absolutely.
to accomplish whatever goal.
Yeah.
Can you give the listeners a few strategies to learn how to control their states of mind, which affect their results in business?
Yeah, that's probably the question, right? I mean, literally granted, Tony and I, if you didn't know this about us, we met online. It was so funny, and we found a lot of things in
Facebook buddies.
Yeah, and we found a lot of things in common, especially this business itself, in the life coaching, the self-development career business. And then he started his company, and I'm like, whatever you need, Tony, just like you said in the beginning, I am there for you, because it's about giving. It's about reciprocity, giving back.
Totally.
And, and along the way, one of the things that we're most challenged with, really, let me step back. Let's go backwards to that question. The key to life, really the key to life is, because I get this question all the time. What's the secret? What's the secret to mastering everybody's life is different, obviously, but we're on the same path, right? What's the one thing that will help us create the kind of life that we want to live? The answer simply is decisions. It's decisions. Every decision that we make leads us in some direction, good or bad, or neutral. Right? You make a right-hand turn in your car. You pick up that phone call, maybe you weren't supposed to, or you do this, you say that. And every step is another process in the journey. Right? So the question, like Tony Robbins says this, the question really then is, how do we make better decisions? That's the key. That's real. I do this in we have a 12-day NLP certification course. And I'll stand up in class and I'll say, what got you to this point? What got you right here sitting with me in class? And the answer is obviously decisions, because every moment up until this moment in life, right here, right now, was every decision that you've made along that path, every decision. Now, here's the real key. Those decisions are only predicated on the emotional states you're in when you're making those decisions. This is the question I ask my students. When you're in a negative state, are you going to make a positive or negative decision? Right? If you're in a positive state, an empowering state, a confident state, you think your decision's going to help you or hinder you? Of course it's going to help you. Everybody understands this, right? The better frame of mind, as you were just saying, the better frame of mind, the better state of mind that you're in, you're able to make better decisions. So then the real key then comes down to, as you just asked me, how do we control our emotional states to manage our decisions? That's the secret right there.
That's it.
That's it.
In the virtual coaching program, Proficio, which coaches a user to take a course, to learn, and then apply the course, that in a nutshell. But it always gets the user using anchoring, which is an NLP word for conditioning, to get them into a learning state before they start learning, because that's the optimal way to learn. If you're not in the optimal state to learn, you're not going to learn as well, or won't even learn at all.
Absolutely.
There's a good chance of that. But if you're in the optimal state, you can learn so much better. States are critical.
Oh my God, they're everything. And one of the things that we talked about before is imagine if teachers learned NLP or some form of language hypnosis, how to control their language to influence others, right? To get people to take more action. How would our students turn out? How would our country turn out if we could empower our children with strategies that actually help them? Now, granted, information is important. I love history. We need to learn some math and science, but at some point, that just becomes a filler in our brain. we don't know how to really justify using it. That's the real key. What are you doing with the information? Because knowledge isn't power, it's only potential power, right? As you just said, what are you doing with that? And your state management, as we're going to be talking about here, managing your emotional states is the key to success about having a fruitful life.
Absolutely. And it's in the application. I'm an NLP practitioner as well, and I totally love NLP. And one of the tools is to manage your states. But, I have found that great. If I got a tool, how to manage my state, but I don't use it, guess what? My state still goes wherever it goes, and it does whatever it wants to do, unless I take control and manage it.
Right. Yeah.
A guy who was teaching me NLP many years ago says an NLP trainer can't have a bad day. I said, oh, okay, well, that's impressive. But I tell you what, that hasn't been my experience. First of all, I'm not even a trainer. But if I don't use the tool, I don't get the result.
Yeah.
You've got to use it. It's all about the application.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somebody even asked Tony Robbins that same question. You look at him and you think, oh my God, the man can't have a bad day, right? But he said, of course I have bad days. I'm a human being. We're controlled by our chemicals, the emotions in our body. He goes, the real challenge is I don't get stuck in it for days or weeks like other people. He goes, I understand what those feelings are. I manage my states, and I maybe just I'll sit in it for 5 or 10 minutes and then I move on. That's the key. Choice.
I want to hear more about choice and being a human being, the challenges, which anyone can relate to. As soon as we come back from our break, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with that topic.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Perphysio. What if there was a self-improvement program truly personalized to you, that knew and cared for you deeply? That whatever was going on in your life adapted for you perpetually. Visit www.perphysio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can start a program that will always suit you, considering all the pressures and nuances of your life.
We're back. You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, and John Santangelo is about to tell us about the challenges of being a human in terms of achievement and success and managing states. Go on, John.
So we were talking, a lot of people, Tony, they go, NLP, what is NLP, right? So let's back up another step and say, what is NLP? So I like to teach in metaphors. Because metaphors people can understand. So if I really tell you what NLP is about, is attitude and methodology that leaves behind a trail of techniques, people go, what? What does that mean? So imagine this. Imagine your computer, your laptop, even your phone, your desktop. There's a piece of software inside, which we kind of equate it to our beliefs. The actual physical computer itself is our body. We learn so many of these beliefs from who? Our primary caretakers, usually our parents. By the time you're 8 or 10 years old, the majority of our beliefs are downloaded onto our little hard drives, and we take those into adulthood. And people think, well, yeah, but I learned so much after. No, you learn information. You don't learn about beliefs. You don't learn about who you are. Your identity is kind of programmed by those people that really have a huge influence on you when you're young. About 8 or 10, because then we start developing the analytical part of the brain where the brain and the mind go, why? We ask why, everything. Why? Why is the sky blue? Why does this little red man in a man in a red suit come down our chimney, right? We believe everything up until that point, even the negative beliefs, unfortunately. And so if you had normal parents, we've downloaded, I say we, with my kids, we've downloaded negative and positive beliefs. And so what NLP discovered was, hey, there's a strategy for everything that we do. Let's call it a mental recipe, kind of like the software on our computer. And NLP means neuro, the mind, and the L is for language, how we communicate with ourselves. Like a lot of people struggle with internal self-talk, right? Negative or positive. And then the P is for programming. Literally the strategies, programs, or the recipes that we run inside our mind. So how do we use this information to really help ourselves? Well, if we understand the programs or the beliefs that you have that currently aren't working for you, you're able to change them. And everybody, all your listeners understand this. Everybody knows somebody that has done something, a habit or a negative behavior, and all of a sudden they've stopped and they've changed it. Like, I'll give you an example, like smoking, right? People have smoked for 40 years and then quit cold turkey. How does that happen? Right? How does somebody go from a really bad relationship to a wonderful relationship getting married? How does somebody going from flat broke to being successful, right? There's a recipe for that. There's a strategy for that. If you, and it's one of the things that I tell my students, find somebody to model, find somebody that's already doing the work. Like you, Tony, perfect example. You want to start a podcast? You want to start well, I don't know about starting a business like you. Your business is huge, and I commend you of some of the things that you're doing with this. It's absolutely breathtaking. So find somebody that's already doing what you do, learn the recipe, and then install it in yourself. So NLP really is about understanding how people create success, build a strategy for it, and then learn how to install it within themselves. Really, that's a mouthful. I know that's a mouthful.
When I was analyzing self-development in order to solve its inherent problems,
right,
the body of information that had the tools that I needed to solve them, quite frankly, was NLP. Now, I'm not like some big advocate of NLP. I'm not. It's a great tool. It's a great methodology.
Yeah.
I'm saying that through neuro-linguistic programming, I was able to solve the problems of self-help, to make it work. Through, NLP has a lot of controversy and deserves a lot of it. But you know what I found? I was a life coach. In coaching, it is extremely effective. I mean, I was amazed quite a number of times in helping a client using a technique or a method. I was like, wow, this stuff really works.
Yeah.
In a way that really is astounding. It can really blow you away.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about a couple of techniques at the end, just to give the listeners something that they can actually do, because information is wonderful. And I've listened to thousands of hours of audio programs, attend countless seminars. I've had personal coaches myself I've hired over the years in my professional speaking career. But it's like you just said before, Tony, it's all about action, right? You gotta know what to do, then you got to take action on it. And one of the things that we learned in NLP is, here's one of the lessons I want to teach the listeners is, here's a really great strategy for really implementing the things that you want to do, living your life. Focus, meaning action. Focus. The body's a real simple machine. It really is. The unconscious mind, which runs 90% of us, can only do one thing at a time. Only one thing. It can only focus on one thing. And it focuses on what's predominantly dominant in your frame of reference, internally, what you're thinking about, what you're talking to yourself about, and externally. So what you focus on becomes your reality in that moment. Now, here's what the brain does, because the brain is a meaning-making machine. What you're focusing on, it has to make meaning of it. So if you see somebody, oh my God, this person just hit the lottery. What does that mean to you? You could say, oh, they're just lucky. That'll never happen to me. Or, oh my God, the opportunity's out there. It's possible, right? Third is action. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Some people say, well, why bother buying a ticket? I'll never win. Another person might say, oh my God, I'm going to go run out and buy a ticket, right? So focus, meaning, and action. If you, as you were just saying before, it's so funny that you said that, is even the best of us can have bad days. Sometimes we get so caught up in our head because it's those limiting beliefs that we all have. Everyone has them. They tend to overtake and override what we're presently doing, right? Which most people will just call fear, right? Procrastination, all of that. So how do we get unstuck? How do we get out of our head? Right? That's the real key, right? How do you get from where you are, where you don't want to be, to where you want to be?
The pilot course of self-help coaching is Benjamin Franklin's The Way to Wealth.
Yeah.
And so it was written long ago, but I made it into a home study course because it's education. It's financial education, but it's with one of the most recognized people in Americana. Okay, and I used NLP in making Proficio self-help coaching. So that's the way it's going to. I'm going to coach a user, not me, the Proficio
Right.
and automation, to learn this stuff. Okay, so it's about education. It's extremely useful in education. But the question I have for you is, why haven't we heard about NLP? Why don't schools teach it?
Well, that's the question I asked when I was going through my first practitioner training. Even halfway through, I was like, why? How come I've never heard of this? Why aren't we teaching this in schools? Here's the sad but honest truth. The education system is political, and we're not even going to go into that. But you think about this antiquated system that has been operating for the last 1,000 years. The little red schoolhouse where the teacher sat and taught these different subject matters. That hasn't changed in 1,000 years. 1,000 years. The teacher stands up there and just blows this information out. The typical, reading, writing, arithmetic, science. I mean, there's some, home ec, physical education. They're not going to deviate from something that works. They think. That's the unfortunate side. They're not going to bring in information that's sketchy. And if you go online and look at NLP, there's a lot of derogatory stuff about it, unfortunately, because a lot of people look at it like, oh, it's manipulation of the mind. Well, okay, yeah, your mind. And there was a gentleman back in the early 80s, Ross Jeffries, that took this information and developed a whole program about how to pick up women. So yeah, you could look at it in a negative way, but I'm sure the men that were taking that program weren't looking at it like, oh, I want to manipulate women. It's like, I just want to get a date. I'd like to go out and make love and maybe get married someday. So again, NLP is just a tool, as you were just saying, Tony. It's a hammer. You can either build or you can destroy with it. That's the unfortunate side of NLP. And I believe that's why they haven't used it in the school system. They've used it everywhere else. Every sales program, even before NLP was invented back in the 70s, if you listen to Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, they were using NLP. They just didn't know what the technical terms were back then.
NLP is a codification of principles that have been around for eons.
Look at Think and Grow Rich, right? Napoleon Hill's book in 1937. It's basically all NLP. Psycho-Cybernetics by Matthew Maltz. I read when I was 13 years old. He talks about submodalities.
I revere those guys big time. When I was making the Benjamin Franklin course, which is a financial independence course, Ben Franklin is a hero of mine. He was a hero of my father's, but he made his own way in the world, right?
Yeah.
But people think they have to get a certain criteria or a degree to be whatever. Who uses NLP in their profession?
Oh my God. I want to say everybody, and that's being very general. Though when we really understand what NLP is, it's learning how to, one, set great goals, because the success formula, Richard Bandler and John Grinder back in the 70s interviewed thousands and thousands of people, and they uncovered a simple success formula, and it was outcome, knowing what you want, action, doing something about it. Number 3 was awareness. Is it working? It's like one of the things Tony Robbins says is, if your goal is to go north and you continually go west, it doesn't matter how much action you take. You're still going in the wrong direction. And number 4, the real secret is flexibility. How do you change your approach, right? How do you change your approach? And I think that's what every human being does inherently, right? We automatically set goals. Most people just don't even know they're setting goals. We take action. We implement these things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. That's the awareness. And then what are you doing about it? A lot of people just give up. And a lot of people just say, no, this is not. I'm just going to find a different approach. So you can use the same techniques, especially as a salesperson. NLP came up and devised the 5-step NLP sales process, and it breaks everything down. I actually built a program around it. If any of you are interested, teachers use it. They use it inherently. They don't even know they're using it consciously, right? Leaders use it to influence other people. I mean, even politicians. Bill Clinton actually learned NLP. That's why he was such a great orator. Oprah Winfrey was another person. She used and learned NLP. So it's not like it's not out there. It's just that we don't hear it too much because nobody really wants to talk about it in the way that, like, oh, it's just a hammer, it's just a tool, because there can be such a negative connotation attached to it.
Speaking of action, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors, and we'll come right back with the great John Santangelo. And I want to hear about some business news and some of your books next. When we come back. Thank you.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Perficio. How's your financial health? Are you ready for emergencies? What if you actually had in you the wisdom of Benjamin Franklin? There's a reason why his face is on the $100 bill. Visit www.perficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can make certain that you're on the road to be financially independent no matter what happens.
We're back with John Santangelo, NLP trainer, and a bunch of other stuff. He's telling us about all this great NLP stuff, which I love. But tell us about what books that you have out, Jank.
Oh, for years, when I learned this back in, I got my first certification back in 2000, and I went, wow, this is great stuff. Well, there's a lot of great books out there. And when you start to consume them, it's like reading a psychology book. They're this thick, and the dialogue, the lingo that they use is so overwhelming in the beginning. I thought, wow, I would love to really put something together for the layperson, for the individual that like to learn NLP, that doesn't want to become an NLP practitioner, just use it in daily life. And I for literally years, probably 10 years, I thought, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. How many people say, I'm going to write a book someday? I'm going to write a book someday, right? Well, I'm on my 6th book right now. And
Awesome.
So the 4th one I wrote was Discovering NLP, and really is the basic introduction to neuro-linguistic programming. And it's a simple, easy to understand book, because when I wrote it from that perspective. Who's reading this stuff? It's not the advanced NLP trainer like me. I'm not reading this book. I'm way past this book. Right. It's the lay person that wants to learn, maybe not get certified as a practitioner, but maybe just wants to learn NLP from watching a podcast like this. So if they pick up the book, they're going to go, wow, this is amazing, because I built in a lot of metaphors and I tell stories. And obviously, you know this, stories are the way that we've communicated for the last millennia, right? We pass down stories. We learn from those things. And then from there, and then this year, I wrote the second real small book called Discovering Trance. And it's really about learning how to use affirmations, self-hypnosis, and our own internal language to communicate with ourselves to get the things that we want in life.
You're a leader in the self-improvement field. I love it, John. And, self-help coaching, Perficio, is all about making self-help work for people.
Absolutely.
I find that, we all have obstacles and deficiencies that get in our way.
Yeah.
Right? And that's one of the things that self-help coaching does. It helps a person get past that in an automated way.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like one person helping another, as in coaching or any other helping profession or context.
Absolutely.
But, whether it is with another or with the self, what's the one thing that holds us back in life?
Great question. Probably, as we talked about in the beginning, and you understand this too. If you've done any kind of self-development work, you've looked inside, you've gone to therapy. I've gone to coaches, I've gone to psychologists to figure out what's in my way, right? I've learned the secrets of success, whatever you want to call that. Everybody's got a different premonition about what it is, an idea about what it is. But here's what I found. It's only 2 things, and it's real simple. Real simple. I've like I said, I've read thousands of books, I've attended so many lectures and seminars, and done millions of hours of audio programs. It comes down to 2 things. Real simple. Real simple. Number 1, clarity of purpose, knowing what you want. And I don't care if that's just going to the store, right? What are you going for? If you're going to go to the grocery store, or you're going to go shopping, if you're going to build a business, what is it? We talked about this before, a business plan, right? Knowing what you want. Clarity of purpose is what Napoleon Hill called it in Think and Grow Rich, a clarity of purpose. Because the mind, again, needs to know in what direction it's moving. Here's the second piece, and this is what your business model does, Tony. Number 2 is learning to get out of your own way. That's the biggest problem. right? Because we can have a clear goal, but the biggest thing that we're faced with is those, as we talked about before, those negative beliefs, those limiting beliefs, those challenges that come up every single, oh, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, I'm not old enough, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm too white, I'm too ethnic, whatever those limiting beliefs are, the things that we tend to hold us back more often. So the answer really is get clear. Again, we talked about this, modeling, find somebody that's already doing it, get real clear about what you want. Even if you want to go even further, put a complex business plan together, because I believe that's really important, especially if we're talking about business, right? And then learn what holds you back. What do you think holds you back? Sometimes it's just asking the right question. Like I just had a gentleman call the other day and he says, I have this PTSD about relationships. So my question then was, what do you think's holding you back? He goes, I don't know. I go, okay, yeah, you say that, but you do know. Everybody knows. That's the first thing that comes up is, I don't know. Okay, well, what if you did know? What would be the thing that you think is holding you back? And that's usually what I ask. I tell my clients, my students, pretend I'm your travel agent. What's the first question I'm going to ask you?
Where do you want to go?
Where do you want to go? And then we got to discover how you want to get there, right? What vehicle are you going to use? Going to go by skateboard, bike, train, truck, plane, right? And then where are you starting from? Same thing I ask my students about the problems they're going through. Where are we going? What are we going to use to get there? And what's holding you back? What do you have to start with? What are your resources?
It's so great to hear you share about that, because when I was coaching, doing personal development coaching, that was my process as well. And to have us converse about it, I reminisce, and I have such great memories about helping people in the coaching process. And the critical part was working with beliefs, because you could do so much, but if a person believes, beliefs that are going to be counterproductive or self-sabotaging, it's pushing a rope. You've got to work with those beliefs. You got to get them to change those limiting beliefs. It's critical.
Yeah.
And when I was doing like sleight of mouth language patterns,
right.
and I was like, wow, it was blowing me away how people were like, well, I don't really believe that anymore. You were just crying about it 5 minutes ago.
Right.
I love it. And it's essential. We have to shed it like a snake sheds an old skin.
Yeah.
This old way of looking at things, which kept us can get no further than where we were.
Yeah. One of the empowering things that NLP has, and Tony Robbins talks about this a lot, because Tony got certified by the same people that I got trained by. He just doesn't call it NLP anymore. He calls it NAC, neuroassociative conditioning, because he was paying royalty money. He was actually paying royalty rights to Richard and John back then. So he changed the name so he could really have his own philosophy.
He's my idol.
You're right. Exactly. I know. One of the things we talk about is the pain-pleasure principle. We do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. And that's exactly what you were just talking about, right? Is really overcoming that pain that's just constantly driving us, but it's driving us in the wrong direction, right? And if you can understand how you can use pain, because we need pain, pain's there to teach us something, right? It's there to say something's not right, something's not working. Most people avoid it or procrastinate rather than use it as the next stepping stone. You can talk to every successful person in the world, and they'll tell you the same thing. Success is hard work, and it's overcoming the obstacles. And because it's overcoming those obstacles, it's overcoming those negative beliefs, which are emotions. Let's turn it all back around here, is overcoming those negative emotions, those states that we constantly hold on to that are inhibiting us from getting what we want.
Fantastic. I have one more line of questioning, and I'm going to hit John with it. In a moment, we're going to have a quick moment to hear from our sponsors, and then the final questions with John. I'm looking forward to this. Okay. Word from our sponsors.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Perficio. Ever heard of accelerated learning techniques? What if you learned more deeply than ever before? What if you remembered what you learned far better than ever before? Visit www.perficio.io. That's perficio.io, where you can understand perhaps better than ever before.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast. We're here with John Santangelo. And he just told me about some wonderful stuff, his books and, the stuff that he professes. I'm loving this stuff, truly. I have one final question before we wrap it up. And it's, how can we all learn to take more control of our mind, body, and spirit?
Great question again. And that's one of the things that I wanted to really develop since I started this business. It's how do we take the layperson, the person that really just wants to maybe have a better relationship or make a little bit more money or, better their health. How do we begin? Because it's so daunting sometimes. It's so complex if you've listened to so many other programs out there, but it's got to start simple. It's got to start small. So I developed this simple guide. It's really a simple book, really. It's only 40 pages, and you can think I'm going to give it to your listeners for free. It's called the NLP Mind Hacks, right? 7 mind hacks that you can do and really reprogram or recondition how you go about life every day. And I'll give you one of them right now. It's real simple. Most of it starts with our internal language, especially here in America. We were, and I've said it, I've heard you say it even on the podcast, we use the language sometimes that's not empowering. The word but in NLP is a negation. It negates everything that came before it. I'll give you an example. I was saying this to my wife. Honey, I'm so glad that we met. I love you, but your mind doesn't hear anything after that. All it hears is that negation. It goes, wait, what? You don't love me?
Right.
So in NLP, we say, just change it that's more empowering. So use the word and instead of the word but. Honey, I'm glad we met. I love you so much. And your mind now is open to listen to the next piece of information, right? Here's part of that. The word try. If you've watched Star Wars, Yoda says there is no try, there is a do or don't, right? So either you do or you don't. So it's really reconditioning the word try and the word but out of your language repertoire. The third word is problem. That's a big one for people, because whenever you say, oh, I have a problem, the mind will make it, because it's focusing on that dominant thought, a mountain out of a molehill. So we say replace the word problem with the word challenge. And that was really tough for me in the beginning. Every time I say the word, oh, I got this problem. Oh, my coach said, use the word cancel, clear, delete. Restate it and say, I've got a challenge that I'm working on. So the word but, try, and problem, eliminate those from your vocabulary, and I promise you guys, it'll change your life dramatically and the people around you.
That will create a revolution in your own mind. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I mean, I've had a lifetime of changing my mind and changing myself and weeding out the negative and being deliberate and changing the words that I use from my mouth or the words that I use in my own thinking. And I do exactly what you have just professed, made all the difference in the world. It created a revolution for myself.
Brilliant word, Tony, used deliberate, because you have to be deliberate with your thinking and not just by accident. You know, one of the quotes I have on my desk, it says, if you knew how powerful your mind was, you choose different words to represent it.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. There's so much richness. And if we go for it, instead of operating on a level that's low, we can operate on much, much higher levels if we're deliberate, if we choose it.
Yeah.
How does someone get started with NLP, John?
Well, I've got a whole section on my website. Let me just be self-perpetuating here.
I want to hear all your contact stuff.
lanlp.com. We're located in Los Angeles, so our training program is out here. We have people fly from all over the world to take our program. We do it twice a year. It's 12 days. It's very commitment oriented. Obviously, you have to make a commitment if you're going to spend 12 days with me. So you can go to my website, lanlp.com. There's a link at the top that says free mini course, and that is the Mind Hacks guide, and it'll give you all the instructions. Just download it, and it'll give you 7 days 7 days of information, just like we talked about. There's a coaching link on there. If somebody wants to get a free coaching session from me, I love doing that work. Like you were just saying, it's so much fun working with people and actually seeing them overcome simple changes like that, almost immediate once they realize where they're going and learning and to get out of their own way. And if they really want to get deep into this stuff, we're doing an online certification, which will be out later this year. And obviously, the books. You can go to Amazon.com and go check out Discovering NLP, and hopefully maybe you'll end up in one of our live courses.
John, it has been such a wonderful experience having you on as my guest. I feel enriched for it. I think that the listeners will feel the same way. You've shared so much great information. We've had a number of tangents, but that's the nature of great conversations. You're a great guy. You do great stuff. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. You offered my guests a bunch of free value books and other things. Check out John's site, lanlp.com. He's on social media, but you probably want people to go to your website, right?
Yeah, it's easier to go to the website for them.
Yeah, get the free gift at his website. Do you want to put out the number too, your phone number, 818 number?
It's on, 818-879-2000. If you're looking to talk to me personally or you want some results coaching, I'll do a free session with you. Check that out.
John, you've been great. I really, really appreciate it very much. Do you have any last remarks or just like to say goodbye to our listeners, our audience?
Yeah. Listen to this man right here. He is key to really driving a new paradigm in the self-development world. Tony, you are awesome. I'm so glad we got to meet and be friends, and I look forward to doing this again.
John, thank you very much. You have been awesome. Really appreciate it. And I want everyone to remember, every one of us is responsible for ourselves, and we can all use some help. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. Remember to visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Self-Help Coaching Podcast.